I think we were now on how many episodes? We're on season 2, probably.
Season 2?
Yeah, yeah.
Sick, dude.
Apparently, that's a good way to do it, is to do it like in seasons. And so season 1, I got like 10 episodes.
And that stays with like a similar theme each
that's
season?
That's kind of like ideally, really what I think it's for is just for like, it's something to Google, like Google or however it like
the algorithm?
Yeah, like the algorithm indices. However it indexes your shit, it's better if you have like a trailer. Like every season you have a trailer, and then you do seasons and stuff like that. That's
smart, dude.
But I don't, who really knows? I've just been trying to. So today what's up everyone? Welcome to Mind, Body, Mushroom. Today is kind of a casual episode. I'm with my boy.
Let's go.
Natty Linquist.
Good to see you, sir.
Round 2. You remember him from season 1. We were over at a park. We talked about all sorts of stuff.
A lot of things, dude.
Kind of hit a bunch of topics.
Pharmaceuticals, politics, faith.
Yeah, that's right. And so today, we kind of took a look at some headlines that are floating around in the news, and we're just going to kind of reflect on them. And some of these headlines, kind of touch on the stuff that we talked about last time. So I figured who better to have on.
Let's go, dude. I'm excited.
Let's do it. So, also today, I'm using my old phone. Something's going on with my battery. It's like progressively dying. So we are playing Beat the Clock. We have about 40%.
So talk fast.
Yeah, I'm going to talk fast. So anyway, that's where we're at. So
how's that pouch?
Oh, fuck. I took it out because I want it here. I just took it out because I was drinking that fucking thing.
We're doing drugs.
We're doing nootropics, dog. Yeah, give him a shout out.
Oh, dude, let's go. Fully loaded alpha. Nootropics, all it is no nicotine. It's just alpha GPC, tyrosine, and GABA. So just neurotransmitters.
Good stuff.
The good stuff, yeah.
Mango flavored, tastes nice. And today's show is also brought to you by Wind and Sea Coffee, the world's best whole bean, adaptogenic infused coffee and coffee products. Check us out in the link below. Anyway, on to today's topics. We got, all right. Wellness influencers aligning with political movements. Wellness influencers on Instagram, such as Kendra Needham, Carly Shankham, and Courtney Swan, have merged their platforms with political movements, notably Donald Trump's Make America Great Again supporters, to form the Make America Healthy Again campaign.
Those doctors, or are they just...
I think these are like just like Instagram influencers. So we talked about this. Yeah, and I don't know specifically these people. Like, it's probably worth looking into. And it's an Atlantic article, so it's kind of like talking shit about them. But we talked about this last time. I think we talked about this last time.
Yeah.
How there's all of these like moms and stuff on influencers that on social media that have kind of built these brands around like, hey, a lot of the food that we're giving our kids is harmful, and so trying to like re-educate people to show how like the food pyramid, the FDA food pyramid, it's like bullshit,
completely upside down.
Yeah, and then that's what we talked about last time. Yeah. And then these people were posting stuff, and then they would get like comments and commentary and like stitches and stuff from actual certified like dietitians and nutritionists that would go on there and just like berate these women and tell them that they were like passing harmful misinformation, and that like there's no science like that behind like what they're saying and stuff like this. And so that was what anyway, that was kind of where it's like the experts are talking about how these like, armchair experts, don't really know what they're talking about, and like just, put the fries in the bag, stay in your lane, and keep doing as you're told. Yeah, keep doing as you're told. We'll handle the nutrition, and then here you go. RFK and Trump could let them, before even they're inaugurated into the administration, they're already
running shit.
There's already like bans on red number 3, like food dyes.
Yeah, I think one of the yellow ones too.
Yeah, I'm sure. I think yellow number 5 is like one of like the worst ones.
Dude, that's a crazy. I mean, that's a packed conversation right there. Because I don't know. Do you listen to Modern Wisdom, Chris Williamson?
No.
So he has a podcast. He had this lady on. I can't remember her name. And she was, she's what we would call one of these influencers, but she's done a lot of research, and she has her own platform called Food Babe. and she was getting...
Oh, I've heard of the Food Babe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's huge. It's like multi-millionaire, huge platform, but she was talking about how she was just putting out the stuff you just said, the stuff that like RFK is standing for, of eating single ingredient foods, getting away from ultra processed foods, like pretty common stuff that you would consider to be healthy advice.
Yeah, right. Like not controversial.
Yeah, exactly. You would think, right?
Like Whole Foods isn't like a controversial business because they're selling you healthier food, you know.
Yeah,
but all of a sudden it's like a cold controversy.
As of like 30 years, yeah. And she was getting like death threats from these Harvard, Ivy League doctors, like real clinicians, dietitians, telling her what she's saying is completely wrong. And the science backs up what they were saying. And so there's this whole, like, I would say like an epidemic of, which I find the influencers to be helpful, where they're putting out sometimes less educated advice, but they're putting out, for the most part, good, sound advice, just a little bit more simplified. And then you have a lot of these doctors who work for big pharmaceutical companies or work for the government, and they're pushing a completely different agenda. So it's like, okay, do we believe the government and big pharmaceutical companies, which we don't really have a whole lot of reason to believe anymore, since after the whole COVID epidemic, and there's a pharmaceutical company, I believe it was Pfizer or a subsidiary of Pfizer, who they put out a drug. It was one family. I'd have to find out what the family is who owned this part of Pfizer. And they put out this drug, and there's literally memos that show of the higher ups, the execs going back and forth saying, like, we know that this is going to kill a lot of people, but it's going to be highly profitable. And they made like 15 billion off of this. And then they got fined for all the people who died, all the lawsuits, 5 billion.
Yeah. So it's cheaper to pay for the fines of...
They made $10 billion. I don't know the exact numbers, but billions of dollars off of this. And it's just crazy.
So crazy. You know, my theory, and it's a little bit of a theory, I suppose, but it's there's some truth there, is that these big chemical manufacturers, the big pharma and big food, are kind of these like giant conglomerate, you know, public, private 100%. Kind of, you know, like
they got
monopolies.
Their one toe in pharmaceuticals, one toe in the government.
Yeah, and they're all working together. So for example, is like, you know, if the big food goes to their buddies in big chemical and says, hey, do you have any chemicals that, you know, we can use to make our food cheaper but more desirable, you know, more addictive, more palatable, you know, get that more umami, sweeter, whatever, but, you know, just like very cost. And they're like, we got you, fam, don't worry. And so now they're buying chemicals from them that are increasing their profits. So now they're kind of like helping each other. And then like, oh, well, yeah, all these weird ass chemicals that you're putting in the food are making people sick, but no worries, we got you. Big Pharma over here. They're there to supply you the medications, the GLP-1s and all this other shit that you're going to now be taking because you have diabetes from the artificial sweeteners and all this other stuff that
you're overweight.
And you're overweight. And, you know, so, and then they're all kind of, you know, operating together. And then, you know, bring in big health insurance involved in there. And we're going to deny, defend, and delay. You know, that's the whole thing with this, which is kind of our next story, but we can go into. And then where do you think these pharmaceutical companies and the chemical companies are getting a lot of their ingredients to produce their stuff? From big oil, right? It's all petroleum-based stuff. So you see, like, the 5 most, like,
and you have the government regulating all of this.
They're
allowing all this
and it's all a revolving door because it's like executives at these big companies, you know, Pfizer, Kroger,
Moderna,
DuPont,
all that shit.
They all become the EPA chief, the FDA chief, the NIH head, you know, all of these. So it's all just like one big, you know, scam. And we're the suckers, you know?
Dude, and you'll see a lot of these people who work for, like, the FDA or work for USDA, they'll retire and they'll get a job straight into pharmaceutical companies.
Right,
it's
exactly.
Like a revolving door.
It's a revolving door, dude. That's what it is. And so it's like, you know, and if it's not them themselves, which I've seen this picture, it shows, like, FDA and then, like, the company that the FDA is supposed to be regulating, and it's the same person. But even in the times where it's not the exact same person, it's their buddy, it's their, it's a colleague, it's somebody that, like, all these people know each other because they've all been working up through the industry together and working through the same organizations. So, it's very incestuous, and there's not a lot, there's more incentive to sort of like self-deal than there is to like really, do your job.
100%. And that brings us back to the original question, which is, I think, why we see so many of these influencers, people who are like looking into this for themselves and being like, okay, starting to see what the truth is about food, about how our body naturally heals, how we don't need all of these chemicals and medications, which, don't get me wrong, there's a place for that.
Right.
Like, I'm not dismissing all that Western medication's awesome.
For sure.
And I'm not a dietitian. I'm not a doctor. I'm a trainer. So this is stuff I'm passionate about, but I haven't done the studies to, I guess, have that accreditation, reputation. But dude, all I would say is like, look into it for yourself and educate yourself, because it's not just what you think it is. And I think people are reaching this inflection point right now where the mistrust in the government and like media and doctors is at an all-time low after the COVID epidemic, after the obesity epidemic that's reached an insane high. And it's just the government's offering a lot of quick fixes. Like, GLP-1s are quick fixes, and they work.
Right. Well, and like there's a, what was I just about to say about, give me a second. Oh, God. The government benefits from, I'm like totally, just go on to the next point. I had it for a second, then I lost it, but it's no big deal.
Yeah, I think it's kind of cool that RFK is using a lot of these people to put out just simple advice, like getting rid of the dyes.
Yeah, right. Well, what I was going to say is, when you're talking about athletes, like, like you being an athlete, look at any elite athlete, most of them aren't certified dietitian and nutritionist, and every single one of them will tell you that it starts with the food that you eat. You know what I mean? Every single one of them is trying to eat clean, eat whole foods, eat healthy, because they see a direct one-to-one correlation between their output and their success in that regard, and the food that they eat. And their input. You know what I mean? So you don't have to be like, there is this sort of like, you have to be an expert, you have to go to our schools, you have to do all this stuff.
Which is what they want you to believe, so you listen to them.
That you listen to them. But this was, do you know who Sam Harris is?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I like Sam Harris, and he's a good balance of some of the other.
He's an interesting guy.
Yeah, interesting guy. Like, again, I agree with a lot of the, he says I disagree with some things, but he's very anti-RFK, and this is an area,
he is.
Where in some ways, obviously, I disagree with him, but he makes a good point, and it's this: is although we are kind of in this phase right now where we're pushing back on expertise and being like, faith in institutions is at an all-time low, people saying do your own research, that type of stuff, and what he says to that is, when someone says do your own research, what they're kind of saying is, don't trust these experts, but eventually you end up finding a new proxy for expertise. So is it now
like a confirmation bias?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. That's absolutely 100% related to it. And it's kind of, but what they're saying in a sense is that, like, okay, so, Fauci, fuck that guy, don't trust the experts, but RFK, trust RFK, or trust this dietitian, or not dietitian, but like this food influencer, like the food babe on Instagram. So his argument would be that, like, it's not possible to get away from expertise unless you're going to go, run all these studies yourself, in which case that's like saying, I don't know, the earth sure looks flat. You know what I mean? Like, you can't just trust your own thing. So you do have to defer on some level to somebody else who alleges they know more than you, right? And so he's very much an institutionalist, and so he's arguing that, trusting RFK or trusting the food babe is still trusting experts, just experts who actually haven't been properly, like, vetted and haven't gone through the rigorous support.
I see what he's saying. I mean, honestly, that's a good point.
It's a good point.
I always like to look at, like, whenever I look at government officials or doctors or Fauci, for example, RFKs, like, I just look at the fruit that they've put out, what their action has actually done, and
follow the money, dude.
And follow the money.
That's the other part of it too. Is that, like, I think what Sam Harris, like, doesn't take into account when he says that, because what he's saying, it's valid. It's actually, it truly is a valid point. But to Sam Harris, he's saying the gold standard is a study that comes out of Harvard. So some person on social media, while they might be right, they are not qualified to make these claims. And whereas this person from Harvard might be. But what I would argue is that anyone, you're working for the NIH, you're working for the FDA, you're working for any of these things, those people are being indoctrinated by incentive structures that they are blind to. They don't know.
It's human instinct.
Yeah, exactly.
You're getting fed this, you're getting praise, you're in your own echo chamber where you're not hearing, and then it just becomes an us versus them mentality.
And you're being told that you are right, that's why you're here. You're in this madrasa of health, which is, these universities, all these other peasants out there, they might, a broken clock's right twice a day, but we are giving you the truth, And you see it even with veterinary services. You know what I mean? Look at the food that vets will try giving your dog when you're trying to ascertain a food allergy or something like that. You're trying to get it's this very Western medical laboratory based approach, and to the vet, they all kind of operate the same way. So you're like, well, maybe that's because that is the pinnacle of truth. It's maybe it's because whoever is certifying and then ultimately training all of these vets through their accredited schools and whatever, there's an incentive structure there, and there's there's a reason that all of them are pinning out the same shit.
Dude, you're 100% right. Follow the money every time.
Follow the money, dude.
Yeah.
Follow the money.
For the case of going off of what you said, Anthony Fauci.
Yeah.
Dude, have you read the book, The Real Anthony Fauci?
I've not, but I've heard. I've heard excerpts and stuff from it, and but I've not read it myself. No.
I haven't read the whole thing. Yeah. I was listening to an audiobook, but some of the claims that RFK makes about Fauci, you're like, bro, if this isn't right, he'll be getting sued.
Yeah, then why aren't you suing him?
Why aren't you suing him? He hasn't gotten any lawsuits.
Right.
And the stuff he's done with the polio epidemic, just murking basically thousands of kids in Africa for this testing. And during the COVID epidemic, he's like, if you don't listen to Anthony Fauci, you're not listening to the science.
Yeah.
It's you become the science.
Right.
That's the claim you're starting to make, because we are accredited by these corporations and universities, automatically it gives you a reputation that you're supposed to uphold, and people just aren't buying that anymore.
Yeah, it sounds a lot like religion, right? The fucking Catholic Church.
Yeah.
That was the whole deal, and that was the Protestant Reformation was that was the whole deal, was that Catholicism was about the church is the intermediary between you and God.
Yeah.
That's where you go in and you do your confessionals and do all this stuff, and and then the Protestants were like, you actually don't need an intermediary, you can have a direct relationship with God, and that kind of cut out the church, and that's why there was this huge Catholic Protestant
Reformation,
the big warring and shit that so it's kind of a similar deal.
That was Martin Luther.
Yeah, right? Martin Luther. Yeah, exactly. But that was it's a similar deal with this, is that the Faucis, the experts, the doctors, they become the chosen prophets.
Yeah, that they chose.
Yeah.
No one else chose them.
Exactly. And
they're
elected. Think about have you ever read a medical study or a legal brief or anything like that?
College.
Yeah. But you're the language is so esoteric and just convoluted for seemingly no reason. They do it on purpose, dude. They do it on purpose. I remember I was a psychology minor my freshman year. I ended up switching to computer science at some point, but we would do one of our first assignments was going through a psychology study and just kind of translating it, and be all right, what does this mean? And then you kind of write it in normal language. And so it's what's funny is that you actually can do that. You can read a whole thing and turn it into. So why not just write it in the normal language? Because they don't want your fucking unwashed ass to know about it. They don't want you to learn it. They want it to be, same thing with legal stuff. Read a contract. Good Lord, you think there's a simpler way of putting that? But they want you to use an attorney.
Yeah, pay thousands of dollars to do that.
And then if you're an attorney, you're I just spent 3 fucking years going through this whole thing, and I know how to read it in this language, so I'm cool with keeping it like that. Yeah. I don't want to work myself out of a job.
100%. I think, dude, it's Sam, to go back to Sam Harris, being the institutionalist he is, I get that, because this is how our American structure has worked for the last, 300 years.
Right.
But we've realized that since like the 1960s, that a lot of shit has been going down, and we're being lied to about a lot of stuff. Like that's just open in the open now. Like documents have been released, whistleblowers have come forth.
Right.
But I guess what I'm saying by do your own research is like the cool thing about living in America is information's public for the most part. So you can get all the data you want to see from the NIH. Like maybe you don't even trust these institutions, but the data is still there. And like,
right. Oh, that's a really good point.
Hopefully there's enough checks and balances to be able to actually have good data. But even just looking at like, okay, ultra-processed food or high fructose corn syrup, like the effect that has, you can look at the obesity epidemic in America. You can look at the inflection point in like, I think it was like 1978 and see, okay, this is when ultra-processed foods and high fructose corn syrup were implemented into USDA.
Right.
It's like, okay, you can make a educated, reasonable guess as to why that is.
Right.
And you don't have to be an expert to do that. You just have to be able to interpret data.
Well, yeah, and like we're sitting here operating like all institutions are just, you know, mean the best and are these earnest. I mean, I just saw something the other day talking about how, I don't know the year that they did this, but Coke spent like a shitload of money lobbying the government so that they would allow Coke products to be purchased with food stamps.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was like a whole thing because, you know, there's a lot of stuff that you kind of can't buy with food stamps. Nowadays, probably more stuff. But yeah, like that was the thing is they're like, we want, exactly. And so they had to go and be like, well, no, like, you know, because they were like, no, it's not for fucking Coke. It's for like cheese and shit. And they're like, well, what if, you know? And so they went and spent a bunch of money. So it's like, quit pretending that this is like, it's just like these companies that just want poor people to eat. Like, no, they're looking for any way that they can find a new channel, a new avenue, a new 1%, you know, revenue boost.
Their responsibilities to their shareholders.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it. You know,
exactly.
Like, you almost like in a way you can't blame them because that's just the way the business model is. Like you have to.
It's like legally. That's legally. So legally you're supposed to be a raising shareholder. Right.
100%. There was also I don't know if it was Coke. It was one of these companies. Again, same thing. Lobbying scientists paid them out. This is all open now. It was basically Big Sugar paid out these scientists to say that the problem with obesity wasn't sugar, it was saturated fat. And that's when the whole war on saturated fat, like on butter, cheese, red meat, all that came out. Like, this stuff is bad for you.
Yeah.
Sugar's not the problem.
Right. Drink skim milk.
Exactly, Drink this
so you don't get fat.
Lactose-free soy milk.
Right.
And you'll be good. Right. This is real health.
Right.
Yeah, dude, it's wild. It's just it's a cool time to be alive, honestly. Like,
and that's kind of that's part of it too. Is that like nowadays and right now, just like we're sort of getting overloaded with information. It's really hard for the average person to kind of like parse like what's true, what's not true, you know, etc. But at the very least, like we have access to the information. Like the truth is out there somewhere. You just have to figure out how to discern between the bullshit and to get to the truth. But, you know, 50 years ago, the truth wasn't out there. The truth was, you know, we had like propaganda. A little nipple that we could, you know, come and get our information from. And that nipple was freaking
whatever the cable news.
Yeah, whatever the cable news. I'm doing. It was like you know, channels 3, 5, and 7 type news. You know, and so now it's like you don't have to get it from the you know standard fare.
That's podcasters like what you're doing.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Really cool. So another story that was kind of interesting that I'd be down to talk about is the assassination of the UnitedHealth CEO. That was pretty crazy.
I was going to ask you a question.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
of course.
Curious because you're an entrepreneur. You have a lot of businesses going on. Like you got a lot going on, and with all this kind of this information that you were talking about, like we're just being fed constantly. Like we're being almost like our attention is for sale at this point.
It's probably the most the finite resource.
Yeah, right? And it used to be land, right? Now we've used up all the land.
Yeah.
So now they're diving into our attention, and like, how do you? I'm actually really curious. Like, how do you basically silence yourself and like keep yourself calm and keep your soul at peace with all of this stuff going on? Like, what do you do? So, I kind of view, if I were just like, I mean, I'm a normal person, so I have a million different, you know, interests and whatever. But I would kind of like bucket into two kind of like main
categories of like stuff I spend a lot of time doing. And on one hand, it's like very mundane, work type stuff. How do I grow my business? How do I get more customers? How do I do more events? How do I, streamline processes? Whatever. Just do stuff that's very like, and within that is also, who am I voting for? What type of, what regular news headline am I reading? Whatever. And then on the other hand, like when I need like a kind of like a break from the real world, I'm very intrigued by like parapolitics, conspiracy topics, paranormal stuff, like, just like the weird shit. And a lot of it, I've been interested in that stuff since I was like a kid, but I did psychedelics for the first time. I was probably like 16.
Okay.
And
shrooms?
Yeah, shrooms.
Okay.
And that was maybe like the beginning of it, then a little bit of smoking weed and just having like high conversations where you're like exploring like, like those type of topics.
Those are the fun ones.
But then I got really into, I've read Tibetan Book of the Dead. I've read, I read so many books. I just, in the past like 3 or 4 months, I've read 3 books on, or 2.5 books on the Anunnaki, like the Sumerian, ancient Sumerian gods, stuff like that.
So I'm sure you know all about like Graham Hancock.
Oh yeah, for sure. The third book that I'm I'm not even halfway through it, but it's the third book that I'm reading. It's a Zacharias Sitchin's book. It's like called The 12th Planet.
Okay.
But anyway, like that type of stuff is sort of like my, like, it's another like interest. And so I'll kind of, when I need a break from like the mundane real world, I'll kind of like dive into these more kind of like mind expanding like topics.
Dude, that stuff's super fascinating.
It's super fascinating and it's cool. And like, and there's also people though, they get really into that. And then they're like, they get black pilled where you're like, oh my God, it's all bullshit. We're all, like everything was controlled. Everything's an op. Everything's a conspiracy.
Everything's a conspiracy.
You know what I mean? And so it kind of is on some level, dude, to really like the more you like really and seriously like really do research and stuff, you're like, oh my God, dude, like so much shit really is connected, whatever. But for me, the way that I kind of keep from, getting too discouraged and like having is my first bucket. I got to pay the bills, dude. I got to build my company. I'm doing really cool things. Like I'm helping people. I'm making products that, and it's like I focus on what's happening kind of right in front of me and then what's happening kind of wherever. The stuff that kind of sits in the middle that is probably the toughest for me because there's not really an escape from it. It feels like is some of the like sometimes foreign policy stuff like that. Like, really? For example, I don't know if you know like the drones that have been going all over. Yeah. So I've been following that like super closely too.
What do you think that is?
So I think there's 2 things going on, and there are drones, like actual drones, and then there are orbs. They're like these UAP kind of like lights in the sky. We don't really know. And people are seeing both. And it kind of is getting conflated because, there's like people are referring to the drones as like UFOs. Aliens and then stuff, and then people are also on the flip side, they're kind of putting it all as just drones, as in like there's a mundane explanation, it's drones.
What is has the government released anything on this? Because it doesn't seem like they've said a whole lot.
So not really, but that kind of has tipped their hand a little bit as to what is going on, because there's a shitload of them, and they're only flying at night, primarily.
This is in like New Jersey, right?
And in New Jersey, there's in a lot of spots. They're seeing them in like Pennsylvania. They're seeing them kind of in a lot of spots now. But yes, primarily in New Jersey. And so you're thinking, okay, there's only 3 countries on Earth that could produce drone technology that like this sophisticated. It's like China, Russia, and the US. Well, if it's China or Russia, we would have shot them down. Yeah. So that leaves one option, basically. It's the US. Yeah. And it kind of explains why the government is not freaking out about them. They're kind of just like, there's nothing to worry about. Like, we got this under control. Like, we don't know what they are, but like, it's all good.
But if they didn't, like, if it's new technology, whether it's reverse engineering some UAP technology or what, don't you think they'd be flying them out in like the ocean away from people?
Right. So I don't think they're testing new tech. I think these drones, like I saw some stuff. This guy was like a drone expert. He had some like aviation dude, and he was like very familiar with like different drone stuff, and it lends some insights that have like since been kind of confirmed a little bit. So he said these are this type of drone is a super like kind of classified like crazy drone, right? And what it does, and especially while they're flying them at night, is because they're likely using thermal imaging, like because if you do it in the day, you're getting misreads because the sun's heating up stuff.
Okay.
If you do it at night, when everything is cool, if the thing that you're looking for is hot, then you can see it much better. So, and if you're not using thermal, then there's literally no point in flying them at night because you can't see anything. So they're probably looking for something thermal imaging. They're going around the coastline. And then what kind of came out like since then is there's been like a whistleblower leak or some sort of report that the U.S. is looking for some sort of nuclear something that was, this is what they're saying at least, was in transit on a ship and was supposed to make port at New Jersey, and then it's not on the ship. So they don't know if it fell off or if it got stolen or what's going on. So that's kind of why the government is being like so quiet about stuff. Like they're like, oh no, but hey, we're good, everything's fine. Like don't worry, don't freak out. But what even like that drone guy and what is that is not acknowledging the fact that there are also orbs. Like, dude, ABC News posted a video that they took of like zoomed in on one of these orbs, and you see it like it was doing like it was like
there's a bunch of
there's
that,
a
dude.
bunch of that. Those are not the drones. That is not what
That's
they're talking about.
different.
There was also a video too of one of the drones. You can see it has like the blinking lights, and it's flying towards this orb that's just sort of like sitting there. It's super far up in the sky at night. It gets like right over it, and then it just kind of like looks like the orb, like it's just like one light, and then underneath the orb you just see the drone falling out of the sky, and it just goes like so if that's a real video, and you know, there's a caveat, all that shit is like you have no idea what you're watching, you know. But assuming that it's all like real, then it's showing that there are two different things. They're not like working together, and it, you know, this is like probably a super expensive, super classified, advanced tech drone. You know, they're not flying it to just like crash into shit. You know what I mean? So
why would they do that?
Why would they do that? You know, so there's something else going on. And then when you look at, you know, some of the UFO history and lore, I guess, about it is been, and some of the stuff that's actually been acknowledged about UFOs is that they've been spotted around nuclear facilities. Deactivating it, even activating them. That was another one. You know, like they've turned them on and off. They've done like various different things. And so that kind of, you know, all that kind of like starts making sense now. It's like, okay, they're government drones, possibly looking for some sort of material they think could have been smuggled out of Ukraine or something. Again, like where anything involving like the origins or the what is the nuclear stuff, you will never fucking know. They're not going to tell you any of that. You know,
unless some whistleblower comes out.
Yeah, unless a whistleblower, right? And then he dead. Yeah, exactly. You know, so and even if they find the thing, they're not going to be like, "Hey guys, we found the nuke." They're just going to be like, "I don't know, it's crazy. I have no idea." You know, that told you there was nothing to worry about, though, right? So like, we'll probably like never know. But allegedly, there was like some. Ukraine had, this was like many years ago, they had like stolen some nuclear material out of Russia, or it could have been vice versa, but it was one of those things. Like it was one of those things where like a small country that like didn't have nuclear tech stole nuclear tech, and any time that happens, like you probably also don't have the infrastructure to like keep it secure. So it's very possible that it got stolen again or something like that.
Dude,
like,
that's wild.
Yeah, but pretty fucking wild. Now the other wild story is the healthcare CEO.
Oh yeah,
that's another one I've been. Have you been kind of following?
Dude, I've been following on a little bit.
Yeah,
mostly through like social media and stuff. But dude, yeah, I mean, educate me a little bit on it.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So basically, this is what I know. I've kind of like talked through what it, like the mainstream story is, or
I've
like
heard some of the conspiracy theories on like the numbers and like the very precise things that have been happening that you're like, dude, okay, if he's a valedictorian, so he's super smart, and just like the hints that he's
little bit of a tism, possibly.
For sure. I mean, dude, you can't be that smart and not have that, right?
Right. No, yeah. So I have no idea because again, there's like evidence that kind of pushes me in either direction. So main story, December 4th, in the morning in Manhattan, CEO of UnitedHealth Group, like a subsidiary of was like the main company, because apparently UnitedHealth is like the 9th largest company in the world. Like the big like umbrella
The conglomerate?
core, the conglomerate. It's like one. So it's a massive,
You know what it is?
company.
The company that owns it, like the parent company.
No, I think it's called UnitedHealth,
Oh, it is?
but
Okay.
then they have subsidiaries that maybe are also called UnitedHealth or
Interesting,
something like
okay.
that. But anyway, so the Brian Thompson guy who got shot was a CEO of one of the subsidiary companies of UnitedHealth. But anyway, so early in the morning in Manhattan, Brian Thompson comes out of a hotel door that he was staying at, and he was heading to this conference. And like seconds after he walks out of the door, dude rolls up with a backpack, jacket, mask, and a gun with a suppressor, like a handgun with a suppressor, and just like starts, one shot. The guy kind of like turns around, doesn't quite, and then he like realizes, and the gun probably jams. I think that's what's going on. So if you put a suppressor, like a silencer, on a handgun, and you don't also put this other device that helps. So how a semi-automatic handgun works is the like blast, like the way that the gas comes out of the barrel after you shoot, that helps the whole like thing cycle so that the next round comes up. So the recoil and like the way that gas works, it like helps the gun work. So when you put this suppressor on there, it kind of fucks with the way that the gun cycles. That's why it jammed. And so he jams, the guy, tap, rack, bang, clears the jam, shoots again, does it again. He seemed very comfortable. Like he knew that was going to happen. And like, he was just like, yeah, for sure. You would think, I mean, you wouldn't even have to think, if this was the guy, the alleged shooter, the Luigi Mangione, this is allegedly the first person he's ever murdered in cold blood.
Yeah.
Seems really comfortable.
Clean slate
Seems
real,
that,
right?
Yeah, complete. Yeah. Dude, I mean, you're like more than a clean slate.
Yeah.
Like squeaky
Top of his
fucking
class.
clean.
Super successful, internships, all that.
So that's your background, okay? Yeah. That's who you are, and you're mad about the healthcare industry. You're like, for sure, we're mad about a bunch of shit. Dude. There's a bunch of stuff I'd fucking shake my fist at, right? So, and let's say you get to the point where you're gonna fucking do it, dude. I'm gonna fucking do it. I'm gonna go. Do you think you'd be just cool as a cucumber, just like plugging a dude in the back at fucking point blank range, and just operating a gun you've lived in New York and Pennsylvania, not on a freaking farm. Why do you even know you've been shooting guns often in your lifetime? Okay, and now then they're saying that this was a 3D printed ghost gun. So you probably, was a tech guy. You could figure out how to 3D print something, but still, like, that's kind of a specific thing to do. Yeah. And then how it's going to operate. That it's like, dude, how practiced are you at this? He just seemed very like cool, and then he just like casually walks away, crosses the street, gets on a bike, and rides away. Right? Allegedly rolls through Central Park and leaves the backpack, and then disappears. Probably gets on a Greyhound bus. That's what they think. Okay. Then they find the backpack days later, filled with Monopoly money. And
I don't know that, dude. That's crazy.
Yeah. So, and then on the bullet casings, it's allegedly says like deny, defend, depose.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So that's like motto or whatever.
Yeah, that's which is like the deny, delay, defend. Is like is a book about the healthcare industry. Yeah. But again, it's not really clear. How is this on the bullet casings? Like you wrote them in Sharpie, or you engraved them? Okay, what?
Which takes a whole.
They're engraved. How the fuck did you engrave rounds? That's pretty wild. And okay, and then the Monopoly money. So like this is super planned out. Then you disappear for 5 days, and you get caught in a McDonald's, and there's all these clues online, and who knows if he's actually left them or if it's other people like claiming to be him or whatever the case is. And then and what do they find? So day of, he gets rid of the backpack. It's filled with Monopoly money. He changes his coat. They find some others.
Was the gun in the backpack?
No.
Oh.
They find the gun on him 5 days later with the fake ID that he used to check into the hostel and his manifesto. Well, that's pretty convenient. That's pretty much everything you need to put him away as the guy. So
you think there's someone else?
I don't know, because that's what I'm saying. It's like there's some evidence to indicate like you're like, you were kind of a martyr on this. You're like, I will go to jail for this so that I get my 5 minutes in court where I can rail against say what you want to say and do my manifesto and make a public spectacle about it, right? Yeah. If that's the case, then why are you running away for 5 days?
Yeah, right.
Why are you changing your clothes and hiding? He had like $9,000 in cash, including foreign money.
Huh.
What do you need foreign money for? Yeah. That's like somebody who's going to run away from the country. So if you're running away, which one is it, dude? Are you running away from the country and trying to like hide your identity, or are you trying to go to court and make a whole platform over your assassination? Yeah. And that was but you can't do both. And then his attorney says that there actually wasn't any evidence to connect him to
even though he had the gun,
the thing. Yes, because that's what the attorney said. Again, I don't really know how. There's been a bunch of misreporting. So allegedly, he first was reported that he had gotten away on a city bike. Like one of those like city CITI electric bikes that you can like. And then it came out that actually that probably wasn't the case. It wasn't a city bike. It was a different type of bike. And then there's a picture of there's like 3 or 4 different like pictures of him from security cam. One at the Starbucks, one in the hostel, one at McDonald's. All these different places. And in one of them, I don't remember where specifically this one was from, but they're saying this is the shooter. It's a guy, and the coat's different though. But he's got the hood on, he's got the mask, and somebody put like a side by side. So there's like his mugshot. This is after he got arrested, right? The picture that they posted, and then the picture from 5 days prior when he's at the Starbucks, and his eyebrows are not the same.
Really?
In the mugshot, he has almost like a unibrow. He's got like some big fucking bushy, eyebrow goes about here. The photo of him from like the Starbucks, his eyebrows are like this far apart. And so I showed Taylor. She's like, well, maybe he waxed them. I'm like, yeah, that would make sense if in his mugshot he had clean eyebrows.
It has to be the other way around.
But it'd have to be the other way around. Yeah. So that doesn't make sense. So
no one really knows, huh?
No one really knows, dude. And then like his family was like commented on the whole thing this recently, and they were just like, they said something like, we love Luigi and we wish him the best. And you're like, you wish him the best?
Yeah, what the hell?
That's a really weird fucking statement.
For your kid who's in court?
For your kid who's in court. Not like, this is someone like him. Like, there's no way. There must be a mistake.
Unjust. Yeah.
This is unjust. Like, we want to figure, they're just like, we wish him the best. Hey, thoughts and prayers. Like, what a weird response. And then his family has, so the Mangione family name, they have like buildings at universities, like one at Loyola Marymount University. There's like a library or something with like a Mangione name, right? They also a bunch of retirement homes, like that have the name on there because they own a big like healthcare subsidiary or like a retirement home type thing.
Wow, dude, this is fascinating. I thought it was a lot more cut and dry than what this is, because it seemed like from what I saw, like it showed how planned out that it was for him, but I didn't know about the mugshots, how those things aren't lining up. Right. And I read somewhere that before this had happened, like he had his clean slate, everything was cool, and then he was like gone for 3 months, right? Yeah. And no one knows where he went. Right. Yeah, supposedly he was like staying in, he goes to Hawaii in kind of like a digital nomad, like little co-op type deal where it's like there's a lot other like tech bros, but they go and they kind of, it was like a hostel type deal and whatever. But yeah, he goes there and then kind of disappears. That was like the last anyone. His mom reported him missing about a month prior to the murder, which is weird in its own right. Yeah. Another weird kind of caveat to this whole thing, or it could be a possible connection, probably not, but just another weird little data point is, the second Trump shooter? Yeah. The guy, I forget his fucking name. What's his name? But he... Clayton or something? Clay? Yeah, Greg? Yeah, not the crook, not Thomas Matthew Crook. Oh, not that guy. Yeah, that was the guy, the first shooter on the roof. Oh, yeah, okay, the second one. This is the one at the golf course. Yes. So that guy, he was like a blonde dude, like middle-aged, and had done a bunch of like weird shit where he was like going to Ukraine and trying to like recruit people to like
fight for Ukraine, or like
Really?
just going places and trying to recruit people to fight for Ukraine. It's weird, kind of like
that same like level of weird stuff going on. Same with Crooks as well. Like he was found around CIA, FBI buildings.
Right, dude.
They like allegedly couldn't get
one.
into his phone.
Right.
His apartment was professionally scrubbed.
Oh my God, that's so
it's wild, dude.
Weird.
Yeah.
Well, the second guy apparently right before he attempted to shoot Trump, he was also in Hawaii. So it's just this kind of a weird connection. I don't know exactly the same place. Like I that was kind of an offhand comment that I hadn't really looked into yet. But if it is true, and it's just kind of weird, like a guy with no other real history of doing something like this, you know, goes to Hawaii and then
this other dude,
comes and tries shooting the president. You know, this dude out, you know, no issue, goes to Hawaii, comes back, and now all of a sudden he's a stone cold fucking killer.
That's where you go, I
guess.
Know? Yeah.
That's where you go. I thought it was chill down there. So that's kind of interesting. But yeah, so he disappears for a little bit, and it's definitely not like as cut and dry. Oh, other weird thing too is like, so the hotel that the guy came out of. First of all, how did you know that where he was gonna be for this conference and stuff like that? Like maybe LinkedIn post or something, like you can maybe ascertain it, especially for good on the internet, good at sleuthing around. But he knew supposedly the building of that hotel, it's like there's multiple entrances. Like it's not just like one door that goes out to the street right there. Like he could have gone out through that door. He could have gone out through another different door. He could have left 10 minutes sooner. He could have left 10 minutes after. Like who knows?
Perfect timing.
Perfect place. He just knew exactly where it was going to be, which could indicate that there was some sort of inside knowledge. Like Luigi Mangione was not an insider. He wouldn't. There's no way that Luigi would have known where he would be from external publicly available sources. Like you might be able to tell he's going to be at this conference and like, okay, maybe, but like the way that it was so precise and so exact.
You had to have someone on the inside.
You either have somebody on the inside or it's not even you. It's like,
when your family's that rich, I mean, you can do whatever you want.
Right.
Especially if you're commenting stuff like, wish you the best.
Like are they trying to like throw him under the bus? Maybe it was like, you know, the family is involved in some way.
Dude, something like that.
And they're just like, you know, like it was like a business interest type deal. And they're like, well, we'll kind of let our kid fall on the sword. We'll frame our kid in some way. I'm just making this up entirely, but like it's just as a theory.
Who knows?
You know, let's frame him, and then we'll obviously pay to get him out or whatever. We'll do it, but it's a way of them kind of like enacting their own sort of internal. Like you saw the what company is this? OpenAI. So I don't know his name. He has like an Indian name. It's like Sunjar something. But he was a whistleblower at OpenAI. He just came out and whistleblowed and said that there was something about something that they were doing was illegal, or they were lying to people or something like this. Like, I don't remember exactly what the claim was. It's not like a super explosive claim, but you know, something that to people in the know, it's like a bad thing that he went and did that. Ended up dead 2 days after.
Interesting, dude. That's crazy.
So I mean, think about all the Boeing people, dude. Like, I would argue, even more so than the government. Like people think of like, oh, it's like a G-man, you know, some CIA assassin that comes and gets you. Like, I think that does happen for sure. But I think more so in other countries that the U.S. government is doing it. When shit like that's happening in the U.S., I think more often than it being the government, it's like private industry. It's these multi-billion-dollar companies that, you know, have many billions on the line. Like they, you know what I mean? Like it's not just we can all hang out together. And there's
we'll come out clean.
Exactly. You know, it's like they have the motive, they have the means, and you know they
can do whatever they want. And the government, it has these massive bailouts for these companies, so the government doesn't care. Right. 100%, dude.
So I think a lot of like that, the tomfoolery of like that type of shit of like, you know, whistleblowers ending up like dead. It's oftentimes, you know, private industries that can hire him in.
Even if they don't kill you, they'll make sure that you never get a job again. Like, you know Jay Bhattacharya? Jay Bhattacharya, something like that? Yeah, he's an epidemiologist, like a really well-known, I think he's at Stanford. I think he's at Stanford. And during the whole COVID epidemic, he was one of the first doctors to come out and be like, yo, guys, this isn't right. Like, this virus or this vaccine doesn't work the way we thought it would. It's an mRNA. It's not a traditional vaccine. And he was against the mandate. As soon as that happened, they started canceling him, calling him like a quack, calling him all sorts of names. Lost his job, lost his lab, lost his research. Twitter banned him. And then just like, I think like a month ago, or no, maybe it was a little bit longer, Twitter X reinstated him. Everything's back. And it's like everything's coming full circle now.
It's so fucked up, dude. And especially when we like when the Twitter files came out and like it was showing how all these companies have like actual intelligence assets that are on the payroll there. Like there's literal like FBI agents, CIA agents that work in like content moderation at Meta or at Twitter, you know,
censorship.
Yeah.
100%.
And so it's not, it's like they're, if the government wants the people to believe a certain thing, you know, like the vaccine is safe and effective and blah, 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 you know, and that's the party line, they can put their thumbs on the scale at these social media companies to pressure the companies to censor
Which
this.
Zuckerberg came out and said
exactly.
Happened.
You just fucking said that, you know? I think it's like, maybe to an extent it is this, but I think it is less that like, oh, Mark Zuckerberg's woke, or you know the necessarily like just your run of the mill employee there is imposing their own like opinions on. I'm going to censor that. Nah, I'm not going to censor that. These are directives that come down from somewhere, and I think they're coming down from the only people that have pressure on these companies, which is like the government, like the intel agencies, you know? So yeah, they can just and we've known that since like the 60s, you know, that like Operation Mockingbird. I mean, the news, the newspapers, they would have literal intelligence agents on the payroll, and they could catch and kill stories
do whatever they want.
Yeah. It's like, it's
that's like, Charles Manson, all that crazy stuff going on.
Right.
Dude, have you seen this? It's a clip. I think it's called I Call Bullshit. And it's a convention put on it's funded by some government entity. And it's essentially like, there's these huge platforms for censorship on misinformation and disinformation. And they're making the case of like, okay, and this is what the World Economic Forum is also working on. It's like the case of, by having all of these social media accounts and like influencers putting out this essentially rebellion on what our agenda is, it's harming the economy, it's harming democracy, because now the people who are in charge of everything can't effectively put out their agenda, which is harming economy because they're not being able to put out the bills, laws that they want to put out.
Right.
So if you're someone who thinks that whatever party you vote for, like that's the only way, these people have our best interests at heart, then you'd follow that. But these conventions are literally putting stuff out how we should censor misinformation. And they use like some of Trump's tweets, some of RFK's tweets, stuff that has been proven to be right. They made this back during the COVID epidemic.
Wow.
And so a lot of the disinformation was stuff that's proven now 2 years later to be completely right.
Right.
And it's like, okay, if we enact, it's like, who gets to decide what's true and what's not true? Right. You're putting the power in the hands of these people, these electives, some of them not even elected. Totally. Who get to make all the decisions.
No, 100%, dude. And I mean, it's like literally from 1984, like the Ministry of Truth. Yeah. And I think what's challenging, I guess, on some level is I was talking with my dad the other day about this, and I don't remember how it got like misinformation or disinformation got brought up, but he was talking about like how, you know, he's kind of a boomer, you know, that there's so much shit. He's like, man, there should just be like a, you know, like a third party that just, you know, vets everything and just tells you if it's true or not true. And I'm like, that's a great concept, but who controls that? Yeah. And, you know, how do we know who's auditing them? And, you know, I'm like, have you read 1984? Like that thought has been thought of, you know, and it's actually dystopian, not utopian. Yeah. You know,
it's like all the people who say like, okay, that communism didn't work, but this form of communism, this is going to be right. It. Right. We've seen multiple forms of it. Yeah. It's never worked.
Exactly. Yeah. Dude, exactly. And so it's like a better, you know, what is better than there being an arbiter of truth, even AI as arbiter of truth. I've talked about, there's a really great pod, this guy's up in Del Mar called the Skeptico podcast. And anyway, his latest kind of iteration of the pods, like for the past like season, like year or so, has been him doing a lot of like AI stuff. He'll have like a podcast with AI as the guest,
Really?
Yeah, it's fun. And then some people will bring on a third guest and they'll talk about stuff, or he'll go over a past interview that he did with AI. It's really interesting.
That's wild, dude.
Yeah, and so he's gotten, so like if you go and if you went and asked ChatGPT or something like that, is there life after death? Well, there's no evidence to suggest blah, blah, blah. And then he'll go, that's interesting. What about Dr. Sam Parnia? What about, Dr. Jeff Kripal? What about, and he'll just start, and he'll like, here's the study here. So he'll start like feeding it the thing or tell, and it'll be like, oh yes, actually. And then he can get it to kind of change its opinion, and then he'll be like, well, why did you change your opinion? They're like, I thought your truth and transparency is your mandate, like be truthful with me here and blah blah. You're like, you're right, I'm so sorry, and
but
so
it's the structures that the creators put
it's like it's that truth and safety or like trust and safety layer that they do to protect people from disinformation, misinformation. And so he brought on a guest one time that he was kind of like showing this to, and the guest was like, yeah, that's great, except for that didn't really fix the problem, because if you are coming to AI and you don't already know about all these studies and you can't like fucking leverage it into submission, and you just ask it for, is life after death real or anything? Is there any evidence? It's just going to tell you the first thing. And then if you've already built ChatGPT to be like the arbiter of truth, now whatever it says,
you don't have to research it yourself.
Yeah, you don't have to research it. And so Alex Sakaris, the host of Skeptico, he says like, well, it's not about replacing our current institutions and arbiters of truth with AI. That's not what, I'm not trying to suggest that is the direction. What I'm trying to suggest is that with AI, like with ChatGPT and these LLMs, you can get to the truth. You can get to the truth if you know how to like press it and ask it, and like that might be the closest that we'll get, and in some ways it's better because we don't want
to just listen to
the computer says. You don't want that.
We want a challenge. You
want to be able to challenge it. You want to be able to do that. And he's like, right now without this, it's Google, or DuckDuckGo, or one of these other that's all you got, dude. Like you want to go find.
And they have their own set of structures and funnels that they're directing.
Especially Google. Especially Google. You can get some of these other ones, but like
go back, dude. Follow the money. Look at how much money Google put into the election. Insane,
totally. And intelligence agencies. I mean, all these fucking tech companies too. Like, how do you think they even existed? Like, it's the fucking ARPA and DARPA and the InQtel and all these like CIA. Schmerpa. Schmegma.
All of these random Dude, I think at the end of the day, it's just like realizing that people are inherently flawed. Like deep down, we're all sinful, flawed creatures.
Right.
And I think when you operate under that assumption of like, okay, some people don't have your best interest at heart.
Right.
Not that you should always go around mistrusting and being skeptical of everybody, because I'm not for that. I like to put things like in the middle. Like you start at 50, you can go either way.
Right.
But like, we're all sinful. And you see that how, people have their own interests at heart. Always. People are selfish. We're all greedy. We're all just trying to scrap to the top to get what we want. And then there's those few individuals that you'll see, like whether they're leaders or they're your friends, and you're like, dude, this person, like they have pure intentions, but it's so rare.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. I think that the skill eventually becomes, it's like, how do we have a realistic view of the world, knowing like this idea that no institution would ever do anything that's not in your best interest. Like some people really think that, which is like National Institute of Health, dude. That's what they care about, health. And you're like, okay, like on some level, I'm not saying that they're an evil institution that only do bad things and everyone that works there is bad and hates you, but there's probably some good that they do. And there's also, like you said, they're human and they're following incentives that may not be in your favor. So like you have to operate on that assumption, like a realistic like view of like the world is. And then now you have to be able to be information literate and be able to get information from all sorts of sources and identify where the bias is.
Yeah.
Because there is no unbiased thing. I remember arguing with people, this was even like a couple years ago, where I would be like, well, Fox is like a right-wing like news thing. They're like, no, Fox is fair and balanced. CNN is left-wing. And I'd be like, well, no, CNN's like, yeah, maybe a little bit, but like it's not really like that, that. And now I'm like, CNN's fucking off their goddamn rocker sometimes. Like it's very left-wing. Fox is very right-wing, and it
they're all owned by the same company.
Yeah, exactly, exactly, like Disney, Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's like it doesn't. PBD has a bias. Yeah. Sam Harris has a bias. Joe Rogan has a bias. Elon Musk has a bias. Everyone has a bias. And so what you have to figure out how to do is how to identify what that person's bias is. And that doesn't mean everything that they're saying is wrong or should be discounted. It should just be that there's a bias.
Yeah,
there's a lens.
With a grain of salt.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Right.
For anybody.
Right.
Yeah.
And knowing that you will never necessarily get to objective truth with capital T, but you can suss out the truth by, okay, what are people over here kind of saying? What are people over here? What is foreign media? What does Al Jazeera say about? What does the BBC say about this thing? And then you kind of piece together, something that is approximating what looks like truth. What's going on in that?
Because there is something is the truth.
Something
there is
a
truth in everything.
Right. It's just you're not going to unless you've experienced it, and even then, it's like if you are a good example. 5 dudes there's an elephant in a dark room and there's like 5 different doors. Okay. So this is actually it was like a religious metaphor, but you can adapt it to a lot of stuff. So the original metaphor is an elephant's in a dark room and you have a rabbi, a priest,
I think I've heard this before.
A bunch of other like religious dudes. And so one guy is over there and he's feeling the trunk and he's like, oh, the truth is it's long. It's like a big rubber hose, and then he talks to the next guy and he's like, that's not the truth. Like, you're crazy. It's like a big, strong tree trunk, and he's feeling the leg and then the other guy's feeling the ear. And he's like, you're all wrong. It's this, and they're all arguing about shit. And in reality, they're all right. They're just seeing it from different perspectives, So we're sitting here arguing whether or not it's a tree trunk or, a tusk or something. And it's like, even if we're looking at the exact same thing, we're going to have our own biases to it. So just being aware that that's how shit goes, and then you can be open-minded because you're like, damn, I guess I didn't think of it from that perspective. Just like we were talking about the drone shit. Yeah. Is it fucking UFOs? Is it government drones? Is it some combination of the two? Maybe. It's probably a little bit of all those things. And maybe the closest I will get to it is, here's what everyone's saying. Yeah. I don't really know, but, At
least you're open-minded enough to put that out there because most people, like, I don't know what it is, but most people want to naturally believe that we're all good. Yeah. We know the truth. Right. And we're part of the right tribe, or we're part of the left tribe. Yeah. Like, this is my team. And you don't care about truth at that point. You care about being right, and you care about winning, because this is the American way. Like, we want to win.
Totally.
And yeah, dude, it's pretty wild.
Yeah, I think the left-right divide is like the biggest sort of like manufactured distraction.
Yeah, it's purely manufactured.
You know what I mean?
And they make money off of fear.
Totally.
It's the Matrix, bro.
Totally. And they know that, like, I think they're kind of tapping into that, like, human desire for belonging to a tribe, And so it's like people...
It's in our DNA. It's ancestral.
It is for sure. And even, this guy, Sebastian Junger, he wrote... have you read any of his books? Dude? Yeah. He did... He was like a journalist.
Joe Rogan one time.
Yeah. He did the Restrepo, that documentary where they went to the Afghanistan in that valley. But he wrote this other one called Tribe, and it's about like tribalism and how it's hardwired into like our brains. Yeah. And he kind of determined that even conservative versus like liberal or whatever, some part of that is maybe your upbringing, your family, your exposure, your experiences, but another portion of it is genetic, and that there is like a very real. So there's a very real advantage on a society basis to be weary of outsiders, to protect what is ours.
You had to,
right?
Survival.
We don't want to change too quickly because we gotta fucking hold on. Like the things are done this way for a reason. Like we can't just be giving out everything to everybody, or we're not gonna have anything for ourselves, right? So that's like hardwired into a tribe. But if a tribe like that never opens up their doors to the outside world, never, then they're not going to be able to grow. They're not going to be able to procreate and learn and to find new technologies and access new resources and do all of that stuff. So, having somebody like some people in that tribe that are willing to, hey, even though that person looks different and lives over the mountain, like maybe they got something to give. We should invite them over, right? But then on the flip side, if you have a tribe that's way too like liberal and they're just like, yeah, we're all peace and love and everyone's cool and like
let everyone in.
Yeah, let everyone in. They're gonna get overrun, dude. They're gonna be pillaged and like burnt to the ground, and so they need some people to be like, hold up, like let's freaking throw some spears out and maybe like pat these guys down before we just let them into our thing. We'll start with a few of them, right? And then we'll see if it's chill and if there's any benefit there. So both of those things are sort of like needed to
you need
do
that
it.
balance.
Right.
100%.
So I think like that tribalism is like hardwired into our thing, like the left and right. And I think the powers that be kind of understand that. And so they pit us against it, right? And it becomes like cheering for a football team. It becomes like, oh, dude, Trump's fucking the best, or like, how I mean, everyone knows Trump's kind of like a cult of personality, and there's like people who are like super, super into him. But what's even crazy is like how people got that way about Kamala Harris. So like no one
real quick.
No one liked her. No one liked her. And then they were like, she's the best thing ever. She's so fun. She's so cute. And you're like, you guys don't really think that, right? Like you're just sort of like, you're doing what you think is right because
this is your party.
That's your party.
Dude, but the crazy thing is how they, like the people for the majority who voted for Kamala didn't vote for her because they liked her. You could ask her, what policies do you like? What do you like about her?
Right.
They don't know. Oh, she's good vibes. I don't know.
Right.
But they voted for her because they hated him.
Yeah, because they hated Trump. And that's what they would do.
That's the fear that people can use to sell you.
Right. It's like so effective, But really, I think the divide, like the real divide, is between... It's not left and right. It's up and down. It's the top versus the bottom. And the top, they vote for both parties. Yeah. They donate to both parties. They do this because they don't really care who wins. They want to make sure whoever wins, they have a guy on the inside that owes them a few favors, right? So it's
I think some people just want to see the world burn too.
For sure. I mean, that's what's like wild. Like, dude, all this stuff with the
George Soros.
Yes, George Soros for sure, but like what's happening in the Middle East right now, kind of wild, like Syria falling, the Ukraine-Russia war, like how there are people that are just trying to keep it go
it's
prolonging.
It's a fire.
And you're like, dude, why
make so much money off of that?
Which is just wild thing. Like you guys are still living on this same earth, right? Like you guys, you know what I mean? Like you want a world war. I don't get who wants a world war. Who wants that? Yeah. And maybe apparently somebody, but you're like, what the fuck? Why?
Yeah.
What are their motivations?
Profit off of it?
Yeah, maybe because they profit off of it.
I don't think people think that far as to like truly understanding what the ramifications of what they're doing is. They just see it as like, well, America's number one. We can do whatever the fuck we want to do. We're just going to keep these wars going in other countries. These proxy wars. We'll funnel them. We'll keep the fire burning because we're just pumping out guns and machines and hell yeah, why not keep this thing going? It doesn't affect me directly. Right.
Yeah. I think that there's like that I would call like a mundane incentive. So like, hey, we make more money when there's wars. We sell more bullets when there's wars. Like that's, and I'm sure that is absolutely a part of it. What I can't tell is if there is also a part of it that is like beyond that, like spiritual or like some shit like that.
Dude, I was just gonna say, I mean? My personal opinion on this, and this is just because I'm a Christian, and a verse that I look to a lot is, I think it's in Ephesians, and Paul's writing to the church, and he says, our battle isn't against flesh and blood, but it's against principalities in the heavenly places. So it's like, you and I, people like say you're left, I'm right. Like the battle isn't between us. We think it is, but it's really between God and Satan.
Right.
And the Bible says that Satan is the ruler of earth here now. God sent him down because he tried to overtake heaven. God sent him down to earth, and now he's infected it. And now, like, the rest of the story is God trying to refine his people and to heal all of us.
Right.
And yeah, that's the true battle. Like, Jesus, before he died, his last words were, "Forgive them, they don't know what they're doing."
Right.
And it's like, yeah, I don't like to take the responsibility off of myself. It's like, oh, it's like, this is the devil making me do it. But, in a way it is. But we have to decide whether or not we're going to follow that path. By whatever. It starts by partying, whatever. It starts by a lot of different things. And then you fall into a dark path. And it can lead to a bunch of things. We start that initial step. And then the enemy just feeds into that.
Yeah.
And it starts filling us with fear, with anger, with hatred. And that's what causes us to do things.
Right.
And so, the battle's not between us people. And I think, like, if we understood that, there'd be a lot more peace. But we're so focused on being angry at each other, we can't even think about, like, well, a lot of people don't even believe in God or believe that there are demons. Which,
right.
It's like, dude, I've seen that stuff living in Africa.
Wow, really?
Yeah. Bro.
Oh, dude, I want to ask you that next question, but before I do, I want to just interject something here that's kind of interesting because I really want to hear that. That's super interesting. So one of the things, I'm not really religious. Like, I think the more I kind of, like, let's say, study a lot of this stuff, it kind of, I'm very clear that there's, like, a light and dark, and, like, okay, which side do you kind of want to be with? Like, within religions, I think Jesus is, like, an absolute, like, one of the best things you could look up towards. You know what I mean? Like, there's, like, nothing negative about him.
Yeah.
Or whatever, however you want to view him as, a prophet, the Messiah, like, whatever, just like you. I don't even think you have to look into it that deep. If you just emulate, like, that dude's behavior, like, you're good.
You live a good life.
But to what you said earlier, so I just want to preface it. Well, I'm not coming really from a religious background, but I know religion. I know like a lot of Christianity and stuff like that. And so what you were saying about how, like, Lucifer being like the ruler of this earth, even prior to Christianity, there's, like, a Gnostic Christianity, like Gnosticism, and the Gnosticism views the demiurge as, like, the creator of this world. Gnosticism is essentially the Matrix. Like, have you ever seen the movie The Matrix? There's an architect who, like, built this prison planet that we're all sort of, like, living in this illusion. We're kind of trapped in there. And so if this earth is ruled by Lucifer or ruled by the demiurge or some sort of, like, prison planet, I think what people have figured out, and this even predates Christianity, going back to the Sumerians and going back to these things, is that if you can align yourself with the ruler of this realm, then you will be set up to be on top of the heap of this realm, which is why, like, it doesn't prove that this is the case, but it lends credence to the claim that there are elites who are Saturnian, Luciferian, satanic, whatever, and they're doing that because if you think about, like, what Jesus and what, like, higher chance of a camel going through the eye of a pin than a rich man, right? It's all about not being rich. It's an upside down kingdom. Yeah, it's not about being rich. It's not about being elite. It's not about having power. It's not about any of this shit. It's the opposite. It's about love and compassion and generosity. Well, who the fuck at the top in our realm is about love and compassion and this? Nobody, buddy.
And the people who are, if they make it, those are the people who have managed to somehow circumnavigate the matrix to get on top because their love has transpired and motivated so many people. They put them up there.
Yeah, totally.
But dude, you see, I was listening to I think it was one of these rappers, like YNWA Melly or something, or Luz.
It was like a recent interview or something like that?
Pretty recent, yeah. Cool. And he was talking about how there was a clause in his, I don't know what podcast it was on. There was a clause in his contract where he wasn't even allowed to say the name Jesus. And it's like, why would you put that in a contract?
Yeah, how weird.
And like it there's so many, like the Baphomet.
Yeah.
And a lot of these, like the goat and Illuminati and a lot of these cultish satanic symbols are at the top of a lot of these massive companies. And you see a lot of cult-like behavior in like what's that, Bohemian Grove? Like a lot of those are the high up elite people.
Yeah.
And they're not worshiping Jesus.
Right.
That's for sure.
Right.
You know.
Right.
And have you know Napoleon Hill?
Yeah.
The guy who wrote Think and Grow Rich. So he wrote this book called Outwitting the Devil.
Yeah, I've read that.
You've read it?
Yeah.
Bro, I just finished it.
Yeah.
So fascinating.
Yeah.
I love how, like, when he's talking to the devil's like, yeah, I can't gain control of people who have definiteness of purpose and who can think for themselves. The only people I can control are the drifters.
Oh, that's interesting.
And it's like, yeah, it's the people who, like you said, are just being, they don't have an opinion of their own. They don't do the research. They just listen to whatever's getting put in.
Right.
The enemy, Satan, demiurge.
Right, yeah, the demiurge, yeah, whatever.
Though that person's drifting, he's just inputting that voice into you, which is another thing, like understanding that we're not alone in our own mind.
Yeah.
There are other voices that come in. And those are the people that he has control of.
Right.
And you look around, you're like, dude, look how many people are just fighting for money, for success. We'll do whatever it takes to get to the top of that heap.
Totally.
And it's like, yeah, there's not many people who actually can think for themselves and have a purpose outside of fame and success and money. It's so rare.
And if you do, then they can't use you as a tool.
Yeah,
and so like,
get out of my way.
That's great. You're talented. You know, I don't know that Taylor Swift is the most talented singer on planet Earth. There probably are others. But she's been allowed to get to that like state of her career because of who she is. But before we forget, tell me about Africa.
Dude. So I guess I'll preface this by saying how at least I've seen the enemy work. When I'd say like darkness, evil, Satan. How I've seen him work here versus in Africa or rather than Uganda is very different.
Interesting.
In Uganda, people believe in that stuff.
Yeah.
They believe in God. Muslims, lots of Christians, lots of voodoo, witch doctors, animists, people who believe in whatever, animals, spirits. That's huge. Right. So everyone believes in this stuff, which gives it that power.
Yeah.
And so out there, you see people who are demon-possessed, a lot more common. You see people who, are actual witch doctors, and they actually have, not much, but they have power. Right. I have an adopted brother who, like, there's this whole story, but basically witch doctors were involved, and they almost killed this guy through incantations and... Really? Yeah, enchantments, all of that. But you come here, and... Okay, people don't believe in this stuff. People don't believe in demons. It's like, oh yeah, like maybe ghosts, all that. But no one really believes, like, okay, there's a supernatural, there's a God, there's a devil. Not many people believe in that. So Satan works in different ways here. He works through, you look at like what in the Bible called the abominations. Pride, lust, envy, greed, gluttony. You look at these things are all celebrated here. Pride. We have a whole month called Pride. Yeah. Envy, lust, 100%. Sex is everything. Gluttony. America's the most obese place in the world. Greed. Give me as much as I can. Like, it's all about us. It's all about hedonism, self-satisfaction. Right. So it's like, okay, the devil works in a different way here, obviously. But in Uganda, this stuff it's pretty common. I guess a story that I was probably 12 when this happened. So my dad's a pastor. He's a church. He was preaching. And in the middle of his sermon, this lady just started screaming. This was back when we didn't even have a brick and mortar. We just had tents. She started screaming hysterically. And so my dad, some of the other pastors run over to her and start praying over her, casting out the demon in Jesus' name. After a couple minutes, all of a sudden, this lady screams her last scream, falls down. No joke. All I remember seeing is like, it wasn't like smoke or anything. It was like just like I didn't even know if I actually saw it or I felt it, but I remember seeing this like darkness move across the ceiling. And it was really quick. Boom. And I was like, damn, what was that? And then all of a sudden the sound system in the church, sound.
Whoa, no way.
Like weird sounds. Nothing that I could understand. Right. Like just noises. And then the entire sound system in the entire church exploded. Broke. Like, we had to buy a new sound system. It completely exploded. And there's hundreds of people here. Yeah. Like, if you don't believe in that type of stuff, It's like, what was that? You
Yeah,
can't explain
yeah,
that.
yeah.
But people here won't see it, so it's like
For
seeing
sure.
is believing. Right?
And if they saw it, they'd be like, well, it's because you're using bad wiring in Africa.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
They'll find
it's
a
like,
reason.
they'll find some possible, and I think that is like, it's like a form of, like self-soothing, you know, because it's really scary to think. I one of the things that like frustrates me a lot when people say, like, people who look into conspiracies, or I hate the term conspiracy theorist because it's such a fucking throw out word, but like conspiracy theorists, it's like it's just people who can't deal with the fact that the world is complex and things are random, and that's a really hard for people to understand. So it's a lot more like comforting to attribute things to coordinated malice of some sort, that there are really isn't things.
Something
We're
you
not
can
just
point
doing
to.
nothing, like just barreling through random like space and time. It's like no, there are people at the top who are doing it. And I'm like, my pushback is, I'm like, I think it is less comforting to think that there are people and institutions and forces that exist in the world that are bad, that are objectively bad. And it's not just random, and it's not like, it is collusion. It is, fucking bad spirituality or weird entities, non-human entities that are influencing people in different ways. And I think it can happen on subtle levels too. So, in these positions of power where people make decisions that influence a lot of people's lives, if you are a non-human entity, I'm just saying it that way, that to broaden it beyond Christianity, but a demon or whatever the case is, an alien, an interdimensional being, go to the people that are making decisions, and rather than having to influence every single fucking person, you influence that person, and then what they do influences everybody else. And now it's normal shit. Like, why does the world suck? Well, because our lawmakers make shitty laws. It's a very real, like, mundane answer. But why are lawmakers making shitty laws? Maybe it's because of incentives, but with money and
laws
stuff
that
like
just
that
don't even make sense.
Right.
Especially
right.
like, I mean, this is a very controversial topic, which it shouldn't be, but it's like the surgical castration and mutilation of children.
Yeah, right.
And that shouldn't even be controversial. The fact that, like, in California and Washington, you can be 10 years old, you don't even have to ask your parents, and you can get a life-changing surgery.
Yeah.
And that's all in the name of love. Like, if we love these kids, is what we should do. But it's like, dude, that doesn't make any sense to me. Like, if you're 18, do what you want to do. That's fine. But to say this is in love, and if you don't, you're transphobic, you're a bigot, you're somehow racist.
Right.
But
right.
It's like, dude, make it make sense. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, like the mutilation of like children for the sake of their benefit.
Yeah.
They're like, and no one, and if you even
It's
pause to
irreversible.
question it, it's like, they don't even want you to think that hard about it, because so they can just label you as like some bad person.
Yeah.
And it's like
Literally 1984.
So and that's a perfect example of something where you can look and find the mundane incentives, and which is this: if you get a 10-year-old on hormone medication, you have them for the rest of their life, dude. That's why would we just pay for some shit when they're sick? We can get them now, and then we can treat them forever. So like, there's like a very like regular, normal. But maybe whoever thought of that brilliant plan was some executive at some company, or some politician or whatever. And there's just a little voice in the back that's just like, hey, did you think about that? And you're like,
think of the money.
Yeah. Wait, I just thought of something. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's that little, it's not him in a dark smoky room. How do we castrate children? There's some horned guy in the other corner. It's like, I think it, like you said, maybe it's just the society, because we're in America, and it's like, it's you got to be a little more subtle. But I do think that there are probably, kind of like the whisperings in the ear of people, and then that starts going down, because, and then you're to normal people to hear, like, this doesn't make any fucking sense,
It's wild, bro.
Super wild. Let me check the battery on this thing. So where we're at.
What time is it?
It is 2:30. Damn, dude, we've been on it. Work. All right, let's see. We're probably good.